Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and the iPhone 15 Pro might be the best size phone for most people. I've been using it for the past week or so I thought I'd talk about the overall design, durability, usability with the camera, battery life, and more. And the first thing is the design. This year we get titanium, and it really feels pretty good when you're holding on to it. It's lighter than it was before, and also Apple has smoothed off the edges. So when you pick it up, it's more along the lines of maybe an iPhone 11 combined with an iPhone 12. So you've got this really nice curvature that goes over to the back glass. I've had no issues with overall build quality, and I think it just feels really very nice and premium to use. It also seems to be a little bit better balanced this year, where the overall camera is still heavy, but it's something different where it feels better balanced than it was before. Now this year, around the outside edge, of course, we have our typical volume buttons, but we also have an action button. I really just have this programmed for a flashlight, but you can set it for things such as accessibility or shortcuts or whatever else you'd like. I think it's convenient to have as a flashlight, but maybe I'll change it to something in the future. But it's just nice to have since I just set my phone to silent typically and leave it alone. Of course, this year we have USB-C, and on the Pro phones, it's fast, 10 gigabits per second, and it's just really nice to have to be able to connect to a third-party, maybe drive, different accessories, and much more. Now, durability of the phone this year has been a bit questionable. It does seem to be a little bit more durable glass-wise in many of the tests online compared to the Pro Max. I've really had no issues there with it. The side does show a fair amount of fingerprints, however, the natural titanium seems to hide much of that. However, one thing I'm noticing is more scratches on the display than I've seen in typical years before. Not just my iPhone 15 Pro, but the 15 Pro Max as well. While they're both still ceramic shield, I ended up putting a screen protector on as I have an unknown scratch and I've barely even used it before I took it out of the box and noticed it was there right away. So there's something maybe a little bit different there. Definitely use a screen protector. I'll link some in the description below if you want to check them out. When it comes to the cameras are really pretty similar to what we had last year, but with Apple's new processor, along with possibly a new sensor for the 48 megapixel sensor, this phone seems to be fantastic with photos along with ProRes video. And the front camera is no different than what we had last year. It's the same autofocus 12 megapixel camera, but now we have 4K 30 log internally or 4K 60 log in ProRes using an external drive. With the iPhone 15 Pro, we don't have the 5x optical zoom, but we have ProRes log internal up to 30 frames per second that I'm recording now, or 60 frames with an external USB-C SSD. So it looks pretty great, and one thing you can actually do that's really nice is if we swing around here, we can zoom in and it's nice and smooth. So if I switch to 3x optical zoom, there was a little bit of a jump. If we go back out to ultra wide, it's super smooth most of the time. I've also used this on my channel for a couple videos, and most people couldn't tell the difference from my main Sony camera. And with some of the photos, they look great. I don't know that you need the 5x optical zoom that the Pro Max has, as you can just zoom into 5x, and they look very similar side by side. I'll have a comparison with more of those a little bit later. Also, one thing I've noticed is autofocus seems to be a little bit better when you're recording video, and in general, I think the photos just look a little bit better this year than they did last year due to overall processing. As far as the battery life, well, this is pretty much the same as the 14 Pro, according to Apple. We have a 3,274 milliamp hour battery, which is good for, well, about 5 to 6 hours of screen on time in my regular use. So it's really great that it's lasting as much as before, and with the latest software, it doesn't seem to get overly hot or anything charging like it did before. But we do have 80% optimized charging options now, as well as the ability to see the actual charge cycles, which I think is a nice addition, but Apple should add it to older phones as well. Now, as far as overall connectivity, it's actually been pretty good for me. In fact, I would say it's better than the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max. It seems to stay connected better. We do have a new 5G modem. And as far as overall speeds with connectivity, you'll see I have 2 to 3 bars of signal here, and overall speeds are pretty fast in general. And we have about 65 megabits per second down and about 15 megabits per second up, depending on where you are and the overall signal strength. I've had no issues and no complaints with connectivity at all. When it comes to the display is great. It's the same display we had last year. It basically has 480 hertz for PWM, so it shouldn't really bother most people's eyes above 29 to 39% brightness. It seems nice and bright, has great viewing angles, and goes up to 2000 nits in sunlight. So as you can see in the video, there's really no issues seeing it whatsoever. Of course, we have the dynamic island on all iPhone 15s this year, and it just seems to be a pretty nice consistent screen with really thin bezels on the side. So no real differences there, but it just seems to be as good as last year and probably will be the same next year unless they even go a little bit brighter than it does now. Now, as far as the overall speed of the device, it's nice and fast when just opening apps like music, going between different applications, swiping up and down, or maybe going into the camera and you want to make sure you get that photo really quickly and make sure you get it on time. It seems to be really fast this year. I wouldn't really say I noticed much of a difference in everyday use compared to last year's phone, but it is the A17 Pro, which is the latest chip and is as fast as the M1 in certain circumstances. So once we start to see AAA games released, maybe we'll see a difference there, but in regular everyday use, I don't expect you'll see much of a difference. The speakers this year are arranged basically the same as before, but I thought we'd take a listen to them as they seem to be a little bit louder and clearer at the higher end. Some people were having some durability issues with the top speaker I've seen, but I haven't experienced that on any of my phones. But go ahead and take a listen. I'll play one of my videos with a photo comparison so you can hear. I've actually been pretty impressed with the overall quality of the sound coming out of the speakers as well. You saw it went up to 88 decibels, so it's pretty loud as well. Now, size-wise for this phone, I think it's a really nice, easy-to-use phone that you can use one-handed. I find it very easy to use compared to the 15 Pro Max. While I'm testing this, it's really nice to be able to just pick it up and use it, and it's super easy to use it one-handed, not having to actually move my hands up and down the display to reach different icons and things. So that's something I really appreciate on the 15 Pro Max. Now, as far as any negatives this year, long-term durability is something that I'm a little concerned about based on those screen scratches I showed you earlier, some reports online of different sort of display misalignments and things, but anytime you make millions of something, you may run into some of those issues, but long-term durability is yet to be seen. However, I did have an issue when I dropped it on my floor, not this particular device, but my 15 Pro Max I've mentioned before. I accidentally dropped it and it took some of the finish off. So that's going to be a concern for some people as, of course, it doesn't look as nice, and over time that could definitely wear. Most people are going to use a case, but as far as the screen goes, that's probably where I'm concerned the most with a bunch of different scratches. So that's something that I think won't be a problem for many people with screen protectors, but could definitely be an issue over time. As far as the phone getting too hot while using it, well, hopefully that was fixed with a recent patch. We'll have to wait and see if that's something that comes back or any other issues pop up, but so far it seems to be doing pretty well that way. So I don't think that's a negative anymore, but it was initially. So it's always good if you're concerned about these things, maybe to wait a few weeks or a couple months before you pick one up. The phone is a little bit slippery. As I mentioned, I dropped it before. With the curved sides, they feel really nice, but it's even a little more slippery than before because of that. And one thing that may be a little bit negative is the sort of older design. While it's not terribly old, it does kind of have the same camera arrangement, so it doesn't look fresh and new. Maybe we'll get that next year with the iPhone 16 series, but again, that may be something that just doesn't inspire someone to upgrade to this device. Price, of course, is the same as last year, but is something that, of course, is still very expensive. So I don't think it's unreasonable compared to the competition, but it is something that is a bit pricey without any sort of deals or trade-in deals. Now, if you're wondering if you should upgrade to an iPhone 15 Pro, well, I would say if you have a 14 Pro, unless there's something specific that you want with the camera, which isn't that much different other than the ProRes log footage, I probably wouldn't upgrade this year. You're not going to notice a difference in battery, usability, screen quality. You're just going to have an action button, a slightly lighter phone, and a titanium frame with some different glass on it and different colors. Other than that, you're not going to notice a difference. If you're on an iPhone 13 or older, that's where you'll notice the difference. So if you're coming from a phone older than the iPhone 13 Pro, I would upgrade at this point. You'll notice a slight speed difference, some camera improvements, and more. Otherwise, I'd probably skip it this year. So that's everything with the iPhone 15 Pro. Let me know what you picked this year as far as using. I could go back to this anytime. It just has a little less battery life, but it's really the perfect size for me. It's easy to use one-handed and definitely something that I probably will miss testing other large phones. Let me know your opinion about it in the comments below, and of course I'll link the wallpaper there as I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.